This video highlights the training review activity from the eClass 101 course. Teachers were asked to access the simulation course, find the following news item, and select the quick link to access the review activity. So you will go to the simulation course, and in the news feed, go to the training review activity, and when you open up the document, so when you open up the training review activity, these are the directions you're supposed to follow. Number 1 says go to the content tool and create a module called orientation. So I'm going to do this in my sandbox. So I'm going to go to my sandbox. I'm going to go to content, and I'm going to add a module called orientation. Then it asks for you to create an HTML file called the Do's and Don'ts of Online Education. So I'm going to click New, create a file, and type the Do's and Don'ts of Online Education. Locate via Insert Stuff a YouTube video that speaks to online education before you save. Be sure to place this file in a file folder called Orientation in the Manage Files tool. So I'll go to Insert Stuff, YouTube, and I will search for a video. Okay, I found a video in YouTube, What is Online Education? I clicked the share button and I copied the embedded code. Then go back to my file and pasted the embed code, clicked next, and then insert. It asks me to put it in the manage files. Be sure to place this file in a file folder called Orientation. So I need to click New Folder and type Orientation, create, click on it once, click Select Path, and now I'm ready to publish. If I go to Content, I can see the Do's and Don'ts of Online Education in the Orientation folder. Number 3 asks you to create a second module called Best Practices. Access the LOR and search for the following item, Best Practices Training Activity. So I'm going to go to the LOR. Type in Best Practices Training Activity and click Search. It asks for you to place it in your content under the Best Practice module you already created. So I'm going to click on this button, click Retrieve. I'm going to copy as content. I'm going to click on the Best Practices module. I'm going to choose my destination. I'm going to add Best Practices as a folder. Click on it once, select the path. best practices, and then I have a training activity that is in the module. Number 5 says make the best practices module you created a draft module. So this is the best practices module, and if I go over here to the right and I click this button down, I can click draft. So now this is a draft. Students do not have access to this module. Number 6 asks you to make the orientation module available from today's date until the end of spring break. So I'm going to click on the orientation. I'm going to add dates and restrictions. I'm going to add a start day. So today at 8 a.m. and an end day. And I'm going to say April 8th, because that's probably around spring break. And then I'm going to click update. And now you can see that it has a start date and an end date. Number 7, put a release condition on the second module, which requires a student to visit the first topic in the orientation module. So I want to put a restriction on the second module, best practices. I'm going to click on add, and I need to create a release condition. I need to create a release condition for a content topic visited, and it happens to be the do's and don'ts of online education. And then I click create. So in order for students to have access, after you undrafted, access to the best practices video module, they have to have completed the do's and don'ts of online education. So I'm going to click update. And now you see that you have a restriction on this. Number 8 asks you to create a news item introducing students to the course and use a quick link to link them directly to the HTML file you created called the Do's and Don'ts of Online Education. So I'm going to go home. I'm going to click New News Item, and I'm going to welcome them to the course. And then I'm going to create a quick link under Content, Orientation, the Do's and Don'ts of Online Education. And now I can publish. If I go home, I can see that it is a news item that welcomes students to my course, and then there's a quick link to the Do's and Don'ts of Online Education. Number 9 asks you to role switch to see what you have done from a student's perspective. Up here on the mini bar, I can view as a student, and when students log in, they can see the welcome post for the Do's and Don'ts of Online Education. They can also see the orientation. Remember, students do not have access to best practices because we have it as a draft. Number 10 asks you to copy the modules and news items you created to another course. So I'm going to copy. I'm going to pick my course page that I want to move it to. I'm going to go to Edit Course, Import, Export, Copy, Search for Offerings. I'm getting it out of my sandbox because that's where it is. radial button, Add Selected. I just want certain things. I need the content, the course files, and the news item with the release conditions. If I click Continue and Finish. Now if I go to View Content, okay, I have a couple other things in here. So you see the orientation and best practices. There's the orientation. There's the best practices. If I go home, I see the news item. Number 11 says, if you are done before everyone else, I challenge you to begin creating a Dropbox folder for an assignment to be submitted. Call it Drop It Like It's Hot. So I'm going to go back to my sandbox. I'm going to go to Dropboxes. I don't have it up here in the nav bar, so I'm going to go to Edit Course. Go to Dropboxes, create a new folder called Drop It Like It's Hot. Really is the only thing you have to do. I'm going to say it's out of 100%. And I might give some directions. Please upload your assignment here. And click Save and Close. There it is. Drop it like it's hot. These are the activities for the training review from eClass 101.